point, or I got to this point where I'm like, okay, so, there's got to be a better way. Like, you know, there's something that I got to do to improve the situation, right?
Yeah, right.
And for me, I started looking inwards because I kept, you keep fucking up. Maybe you've made,
It's
am I allowed
okay.
to?
Nah, yeah, oh yeah. We say all sorts of stuff. No worries.
All right. Um, you keep messing up, and when you do it more, like, I mean, I'm pretty stubborn, but if I made the same mistake over and over, which I have, and it's like, okay, buddy, there's something you're doing.
Hey, everybody, it's Dr. Deb with PTSD and Beyond. Say, did you ever reach out to somebody on Instagram and say, you know what? There's a message right there that I want to capture, and I think that our audience would super resonate. Well, you know me in the fashion of if you don't ask, you never know. And what's the worst that could happen? They say no. So I reached out to our guest today, David Vena from Toronto, Canada, and just want to connect with you and talk with you a little bit about your story, hear about some of the inspiration, and then also, yeah, just have a deep Circa conversation. And there's a link to that because I want to give a plug real quick to Circa Masonry out in Toronto, Canada. So, David, welcome to PTSD and Beyond.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Deb.
So let's dive into some of these inspirational quotes. What was the driver of, picking up whether it's a phone or some sort of video cam and posting these messages out there?
Um, I mean, I, not to date myself, but I sort of came up under this non-tech, digital sort of age, right? Called the old school times where you had to, call somebody, right?
Right?
And I remember, growing up in a very simple, blue collar Italian neighborhood, Italian family. Um, we used to have desserts and snacks for guests. Like you weren't allowed to touch, we were talking about cannolis or cookies or whatever. That those were the guest cookies, so they were just there, right?
In
So
the
people would
fancy
just
room,
in the
right?
fancy room. So people would just knock on the door and be like, "Oh, look, it's Komada, whoever," or you know they were in the area. So, I mean, there was always that connection, right, to humanity and to people, and regardless of if you were busy, it was such a beautiful experience, and I remember that very well, and that's always been a big part of my soul is you know connecting on that level, and I just feel like in this age now, it's like
Right.
texting and even in my line of work, you know, people will call in and you can hear it in their tone, their voice. They're just so busy. They're like, I need to get this fixed. And I'm like, how's your day going today?
Mm-hmm.
How are you, man? Right? What's your deal? Where are you calling from? What's going on? Did you like I don't know. For me, I've always been like that, right? It's not for everybody, but to me, I'm just I don't know. I really enjoy that part of life, you know?
Connecting with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the digital world, while it's connected us in the sense that we can have a conversation with someone, halfway around the world, there's that separation still of the connection component, the human component. And there's a video that you posted on Instagram about how many phone calls you take and that, you actually take a pause and talk with folks and help with education. And I think that says something about a leader and a leadership style. What are some of the responses that you've gotten from folks when you have asked, hey, how's it going? Or the amount of time that you take with the person? Because I don't think that's something that most people experience as a normal habit anymore. What are some things
No,
that people have
and
shared with you?
yeah, thanks for that. Most people, especially when buying a service, like a trade service, it's not really, it's not a norm for sure. It's usually just quick, yeah, I'll fix it, I'll be by next week, and they won't show up or whatever it is. Um, it's been very positive. There has been, one in 50 where they're like, can you fix my stairs?
Mm-hmm.
And, and growing up with those type of interactions, I was always kind of taken a bit back because, you take it personal. You're like, maybe the guy doesn't like me, but they're in survival mode. A lot of people are in survival mode. I find, especially in today's, we're trying to keep up,
Mm-hmm.
and we've lost ourselves a little bit, I think. So I kind of, um, I've taken that perspective. If people are trying to rush through things, and I'm not going to change who I am, but at the same time, I'm not taking that personal. But for the most part, it's been very positive, and thank you so much. I didn't realize my house was going to collapse, but we'll keep in touch, right? So, but it's very important for me to help people understand what's going on as an expert in my niche.
Mm-hmm.
Masonry is more of a specialized. It's an old world trade. Um, it's not like landscaping or whatever,
It's an
like
artisan
painting.
trade.
Yeah, and it's there's a combination of some engineering in there, some structural, some artistic
Mm-hmm.
component. So for me, it's really important for me to explain things. So to you who owns a home, you understand what the heck's going on with your house,
Mm-hmm.
why this has happened, and what are the options, right?
Right. Right. Exactly. Do you like to cook by any chance?
Interesting. So this has been a subject here in my personal life that has come up. I'm not a big cook.
You're not a big
Um,
cook. Okay.
I can barbecue.
Okay.
I'm a bit of an old school kind of guy where I like to have my lady cook for me, but
Okay. The
I hope
reason
that doesn't get me in trouble.
No, no, the reason why I was asking was because I can see the correlation of baking and cooking with masonry because I was looking on your site and some of the images of the before and after. It reminds me of when someone's making bread and you see the before, when everything's just a
Mhm.
big pile of something, right?
Yep,
And then the
it turns into something
sculpting.
beautiful.
Right, exactly. And then the sculpting and then the post is, the bread is, just again, artisan. It's artwork versus the transaction of I just did it, right? I just got through it. There's a
Yeah,
quality of the I would say craftsmanship and the pride in it. When you're working, do you find that there is like a sculpting with it. There's a sense of stress relief with it, almost like you're one with the tools.
absolutely. I can totally see that. Like, there's a satisfaction to it, and then also depending on the mindset of the person doing the work.
Hmm.
Um, you generally have there's two schools of thought. One guy is just trying to get this done, and another guy knows that the homeowner isn't going to inspect this mortar joint. The homeowner will never know if I went another quarter inch to extract the old mortar or not. They're only going to see the surface. So, it's the guy that's going to go that little bit extra because he loves what he does, and he's honoring that person in that home. That to me is is what drives me and that mindset.
How do you inspire your crew with sharing that mindset? Because I know there's another person and I don't remember their name, but they have a quote also on the website, and it is about um, the mindset and the joy. And there's also a quote from you too. But how do you inspire that mindset and foster that with other people? Because I can tell you right now, that's another reason why I reached out. Because when I saw that posting, it just really it really made me think. But in addition to making me think, it really touched me, and I thought, okay, we got to get this guy on. You need a platform. You need to share these messages.
Um, like just in life, like how we connected, I think um if you're present and you have a pursuit of I believe a righteous pursuit, you know, I like to think as we've gotten older, we kind of know ourselves a little bit more. Our capacity is more free, um, in the moment to listen. I'm always listening to people, and while I'm listening, I'm trying to understand where they're at and seeing where they are. So I think to answer that question now, it's like you have to surround yourself with people that align in terms of values and thoughts.
Hmm.
So I think that's kind of where it starts. I mean, I'm not saying that it's impossible to bring somebody who, is just totally not there. But for the most part, I think, it's about being present, having that free capacity mentally, being in the moment, and you know, being aware of who you bring onto your team and who you
Hmm.
surround yourself with, right? Because you're the company you keep, right? At the end of the day.
Right. Exactly. How did you get to this point? Was there, I don't know, a class that you took, or was there, I don't know, maybe a book that you read and you thought, oh, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna do this. I mean, I say that because sometimes people will ask me, isn't it like going to the gym? And I think commitment is one thing and determination is something else, but it's not a transaction. It's not like a checklist. I
Yeah.
explained this to someone, so yesterday, the day before, I've been traveling a lot, and they asked me about this, and I said, no, it's not, I gotta set 20 minutes aside. This is me. It doesn't shut off. This is part of your being. So how did you
Hmm.
get to that point?
Um, it's school of hard knocks. I mean, like most people, I've fallen so many times and, fallen into so much pain and suffering, um, so much. And eventually you get to this point, or I got to this point where I'm like, okay, so, there's got to be a better way. Like, there's something that I got to do to improve this situation, right?
Yeah, right.
And for me, I started looking inwards because I kept, you keep fucking up. Maybe you've made. Oh,
It's
am I allowed to?
okay. Nah, yeah, oh yeah, we say all sorts of stuff. No worries.
All right. Um, you keep messing up, and when you do it more, like, I mean, I'm pretty stubborn, but if I made the same mistake over and over, which I have, and it's like, okay, buddy, this is there's something you're doing, right? So I wanted to get a little bit more inward with it, and this kind of brought me down to this sort of pursuit of trying to figure things out a little bit. And as I've seen some success, it's like one of those things that I'm like, okay, because everybody has this struggle, everybody goes through this shit.
Hmm.
So, you know, I don't like to see people suffer unnecessarily because there's
Right.
more than enough suffering out there. There really is.
Hmm.
So if there's something that I can share, like I was telling you in the pregame, I'm the first guy that if I see something exciting or something cool, or like just up the street, there's a new sourdough bread from a baker here. It's like got the fermenting yeast that's super healthy. Like I'm telling everybody, right? You got to eat this stuff. Healthy bread, right? You got to eat it.
Yeah, right.
So it's along those lines, right? That things that I've noticed a quantum shift with myself. And believe me, I was the last person to think that I would have gotten to this point, but it came from being tired of hitting my tailbone against the pavement, right?
Right. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that story, in your lived experience. One of the things about our podcast is people will send messages on email, or even actually comment, and they'll tag on which podcast episode, spoke to them. And I think that's one of the values that we bring is the different guests, because you just never know what you just said right here, how it's going to touch someone. And I always say information rests in our head, but what inspires us touches us in our heart. That stuff stays with us. That's the stuff
Yeah,
that
yeah,
continues to stay with us.
yeah.
I'm going to bring on another quote here, something you said, putting you on the spot, David.
It's okay.
So you said, like when I say that, you said, clear your mind, do what brings you joy fully. The universe will take care of the rest. What inspired you to write that?
Good question. Like most people, um, I struggled more before than now, but still struggle with, um, struggling in our own imagination, right? There's a famous Stoic quote, we struggle in our imagination mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Generally speaking, if we're fearing tomorrow about something, it's never that fucking bad, is it?
No,
No, like seriously, think about it.
no, it's not. We make the story worse. We make the story worse by ruminating.
No, but Deb, it's never that bad,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, right. It's not.
And once I started to really audit that a little bit, okay, tomorrow, holy fuck, what if this happens? What if,
Yeah,
I
right.
do that, I go there.
The what
So
if?
okay, so audit it, and then let's tomorrow at 12, where's the bomb? Where's the fire? Where's the fire truck? Like it's fucking fine,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I did that for a while, and I was like, okay, this is nonsense. This is total nonsense. So back to that quote, once you start to feel that it's never that bad, right? Um, you start to realize, the importance of being in the moment, arriving. Like if we have an appointment at 3, I've arrived. I've arrived. We make eye contact. It's like arrive now, arrive in the next 5 minutes, arrive. We're here, right? You're not ahead, you're not behind, you've arrived. So arrive to the moment. And by doing that, I feel like your capacity is free, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not pensive, you're not fearing, you're not lamenting. Your capacity is here and it's free. And like I said, you're aware. You're aware of the person in front of you, you're aware of that conversation, you're aware of this interaction, you're just aware. And the universe will bring you shit like from there because your capacity is free. You're thinking clear. You're a smart person. You're smarter than you think you are, right? We're animals. We're very intuitive. As long as we're here, we're available. If you're not here, you're not available.
Right.
You're in here. The universe is throwing shit at you, and you can't even see it because
Yeah,
you're
right.
thinking of the ditch that you're gonna fall into tomorrow at 3 o'clock
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, right? So that's a long story as to where that came from.
How do you how did you develop, I don't want to call it a skill, but that awareness? There is I don't call it a breaking point because it's not a breaking point. For me, it wasn't a breaking point. A cycle breaking moment, yes, but not a breaking point. A turning point, I will call it a turning point where I did recognize where the rumination, and some practitioners call it a monkey mind, but I don't call it a monkey mind. It literally was like the monster of what if. I couldn't have a list of enough of the what ifs. And at some point, I actually crumpled up a list because it wasn't helping me. And I actually said that out loud. This is not helping me. This isn't helping me feel better. It's not helping me for what I need to figure out and fix and address. And I do find that taking a pause and asking myself the question, how is this helping me? And if it's not, then I actually have it goes into another pile. And it's not literally a pile, it's more of me just envisioning it goes into a pile. But how did you get there? And You know, we share different techniques on this platform, but everybody processes things differently. You know, and that ruminating mind can hijack our mind and have us go all over the place. And the next thing you know, 3, 5 days can go by. How do we help people stay present with what's really going on versus having our mind think 3, 5 days out?
So you nailed it. It's a skill, and it being a skill that needs to be practiced and practiced and practiced.
Mm-hmm.
Not something I just woke up with. It wasn't a quantum moment that or a wave of feeling that just changed things. It was like I said, it was um, tired of being in the shit, um, being aware that I've been consuming myself with intrusive thoughts.
Right.
Um, a minute can turn into an hour, can turn into days, can turn into weeks, can turn into years of
Mm-hmm.
intrusive thoughts. And it's not until you recognize that you're having these intrusive thoughts. And then from there, like I said, recognize that, okay, so let's see, smarty pants, let's see where we're gonna be at tomorrow then, right? And like where are the killers and the murderers that I thought, what I mean? Like metaphorically, of course.
Right.
Um, they never show up. So once I realized that, I said, okay, so this is going to be a skill now. I'm going to have to practice this. I'm going to have to practice when I get this thought saying that it's never that bad, and control your thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to think that way. It's nonsense. It's fictitious. It never happened. And I think what also helped me think that way is, I've got a couple kids, and you see them growing up, and even if you don't have kids, you look at little kids and you just look at them different, right? You tend to give them a pass. Like heck, even the court of law, like you're not allowed to go to jail if you're like under 16, right? So, that's us. It's just some facial hair, you know. We're still kids. Um, be gentle on yourself. Um, you don't know shit. We're having this conversation. We're hoping to um, to help other people. This is from my experience, from your experience. My parents didn't have this experience. My parents didn't teach me this stuff. My parents had, I mean, they were raised, I don't know, in the forest by, who knows, right? By bears, right? So how are they supposed to know? So be gentle on yourself. Maybe you came from a broken home. Maybe your family was, not a solid unit. But then where did they come from?
Yeah.
Like maybe they were raised by the same, bears and gorillas, like be gentle on yourself. We never had these resources that we have now, um, to learn. Like, do you ever notice, like, pro baseball players? You're a Sox fan. Do you ever notice, like, when a pro player retires and then a few years later they have a kid that's like coming up, right?
Yeah,
Like
right.
everyone's talking about like LeBron James's kids.
Look at the Toronto. Look at the Toronto baseball team. Come on, the Blue Jays. There's a generational player there. That's all I'm gonna
Right.
say.
Yeah. So no, you're absolutely right.
You
So
know.
and it's from experience, right? So that's all we're trying to do
Yeah, right.
is it's the same principle. There's a reason why there's generational ball players, is because they're sharing their experience.
Right.
Just start with, there's no way your parents or my parents were, they weren't baseball players. They weren't, they didn't have this pursuit of being in the moment. Heck, they were, they came from like World War II times. Like, there
Yeah,
was no bread. Like they were in survival mode,
right, exactly. Yeah, mine
They didn't
too.
have time to or the tools to talk about this, you
Right.
know. I mean, what's nice now is we have time. You know, they didn't really have a lot of time to figure that kind of stuff out,
Yep.
you know. And that's also the other thing, right? Is, you know, try and find your mission, try and find your purpose. You know, you had mentioned, you know, some of your market or audience, you know, they've served. My hat's off to them. You know, we owe a lot to them. And, you know, I know, so I have some friends, they come back and you're so like hyper involved in missions, and then you come back and it's like, you know, it's like your adrenaline system is fucked, right? So try and find a purpose, try and find missions. You know, some guys will, you know, they'll get into business, or they'll help the community or be of service to people, or, you know, go to the gym. You know, you gotta be moving, right?
Yep.
We're in an age right now that the devil's there, you know, with, you know, social media, where they call it dead scrolling.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Um, there's so many things that can pull us into this, you
Vortex.
know, vortex, like
Hmm.
distractions, call it. I
Right.
call it distractions
Hmm.
because there's a lot of distractions, and, you know, not to get it too conspiratorial, but the government's all about making distractions available. You know, you got, you know, during COVID, you had, the liquor store was the only store that was allowed to be open. You know, um, you know, smoking weed and doing all that was open, but the gyms were closed, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that shit out there, right?
Yep. What are some things that you're most proud of when you think about yourself? What are you most proud of about what you've done for you? It really is a gift to yourself, you know. I mean, we do talk about helping generations. You know, we provide that for our kids. But what are you most proud about the gifts that you've given to yourself?
I'm pretty determined. I'm pretty headstrong. Like, you got to put a bullet in my head to stop me. I've fallen down a lot, um, but I refuse to let life take me down.
Hmm.
I've had a lot of moments where it was, you know, it was really, really tough, and, you know, you question things, but I'm a stubborn son of a bitch.
People have said
And
that I'm stubborn too, and it's like, now you don't get it. It's not about being stubborn. It's about being relentless for yourself. It's about being relentless for you.
yeah, it's like, maybe you don't feel like that for yourself right now, or somebody listening, because I get it, because I've been there. But think about, you know, if you have a son or a daughter, or that one friend, or that one, you know, guy or girl. There's that one person you can think of that, if they called you, you'd go to war for. And, you know, think about that for yourself, because, you know, you're still that kid.
Hmm.
Even though you can go to jail because you're over 16, I don't think you should, right?
Right.
You're still that kid.
Hmm.
You know, go to war for that guy. So that's what I think I'm most proud of is, you know, I'll go to war for myself. It's hard, but I will.
Any last minute thoughts? Anything that you want to add for our listeners as we wrap up today, David?
It's never as bad as your imagination says it is, man. Never. Um, I would say don't underestimate the smallest discipline, the smallest thing. I talked, um, you know, one of the ways that, you know, got me started was I started drinking water. You know, you're busy, maybe you have a bottle of water here and there, you eat a burger, let me get a water. You know, it doesn't do shit. You don't realize until you drink 2 to 4 liters. You're like, holy hell. Like, I have energy. This is all it was water. right? And they've been telling us to drink water. So again, we're probably not present. We're in our own little world. I started drinking water and I felt different. And these micro disciplines, it was like an investment to all these other things. Like I ended up cutting out, like if it doesn't serve me, like I ended up cutting out alcohol completely. Um, your sugars and seed oils, you don't realize that if these things don't serve you, just fucking throw them out.
Yep.
I can tell you, business relationships. I had a business partner. It was an amicable separation, but we didn't have the same values or ideas. Therefore, it wasn't serving. So that went. Even on a personal level, it's a 13-year relationship with my wife. We recently separated. And again, it's amicable, but I was really like, this is literally like from water, right? So these things that I'm telling you about,
Yep.
that's where it starts.
Mm-hmm.
Because then once you start to feel like I'm 45 now, like I like to think I know who I am more or less now, right? If I had to do everything all over again. So that feeling of honoring myself, right? If a woman wants to dance, in the kitchen while she cooks, make sure you're surrounded by people that wants to do that they think that's cool,
Right.
right? What are we doing? Right. So you have to honor yourself and you really have to think of yourself as, you know, yeah, I know it's hard, but we can do it for other people. We can do it for our sons and our daughters and our parents. But you have to start thinking about it like, for yourself. You're a kid. Imagine this kid trying to figure it out, raised by gorillas in the forest, right? How the hell were you supposed to figure this out on your own? You're figuring it out now. Be
Mm-hmm.
kind to yourself, man. Don't beat yourself up. No one was there to teach you. But start with a micro discipline right now, and you'll start to feel better.
I love that message. Start with a micro discipline and you'll feel better. And that's
Mhm.
another reason why we do the podcast is because people feel better and we want
Yeah,
people to feel better.
that's it. That's it.
That's it. Let's give a plug to your business. Where can people find you?
Circamasonry.com, Instagram at Circa Masonry. We're trying to do a lot more of this kind of content, a little context, a little bit more of a connection so you know who you're dealing with. I mean, I think that matters, right? You want a problem fixed. We're going to solve a problem together. You want to know that I'm not an asshole or, out to screw you. Um, I had a couple buddies hate. They're like, hey, man, you're not this isn't, you're a brick company. Well, it's more than that, Your
Yeah,
friggin' house
really.
here, houses are 1.5 mil, which is totally insane. So, you're hiring me to fix a problem at your house. You want to know that I'm not an asshole,
It's a person's
right?
home, you know?
Right?
Yeah,
But you want to know a bit about me, no?
I do. I would. I do.
Yeah.
That's, oh yeah. If I've got a contractor come over, yeah, I want to know who you are.
You don't know who this guy is.
Mm-hmm.
You're writing him a blank check.
Yeah. No, I do. Coming in my house, I
W-
want to know who you are.
Can we agree that you don't know somebody until shit hits the fan? Like shit's gonna hit the fan when we're doing major work on your house. I want to know. I want to
Gonna
know, like,
Right. Yeah, no, I want to know someone's got my back and they're not going to like board everything up and take off and never, and you're calling and calling and they don't pick up, you
yeah,
know? Yeah, it's the worst feeling. I've had that happen once on a window.
yep,
But yeah, I know you know what I'm talking about. Well, it was a pleasure
yeah,
to meet you for sure. And thank
you
you so
too.
much for coming on and sharing your wisdom and your insights. And everybody, if you're out there listening, and I know that you are because if you made it this far, I mean, we do have 100% listenership, so no worries. But make sure that you reach out to David and say, hey, I heard you on PTSD and beyond. And yes, our friends in Canada to the north, you know where to find them and hook up with them and say, hey, I need you to come over here and fix a problem.
Thank you, Dr. Depp.
You bet. All right, everybody, you know what I'm going to say? Say it with me. At some point, someone's going to say it with me. We're stronger together, we're better together, and take what resonates and go beyond.